Welcome back to Red Player One Reviews. Today we're going to be taking a look at Carson City. Carson City is a game in which players will be settling the Wild West. They do this by buying plots of land or building buildings on those plots of land. Each building type will score very differently. It's not just a standard worker placement game though. In Carson City, nothing is safe. Every spot, except for a couple, can be dueled over. So each player starts the game with $15, a road, and a gun. Let's see how it all comes together. This is Carson City. So up here in the top, you're going to have the area of the game board where players will take most of their actions. Down here at the bottom is sort of the center of town and the area for you to claim parcels of land and then build buildings on top of those parcels later in the game. So first I'll just run you through what each of these actions do and how they resolve. So first, this is a spot that just gives the player $4. And the important thing about this is that it's upfront of paying for other things in the round. So if you need money early in the round, this is going to be the only way to get it. Then there's this 3 gun token here that you can grab and use as firepower in duels. Duels occur anytime 2 cowboys go on the same space, so if 2 players both wanted this bank, during the resolution phase they're going to have to duel for that. The dueling works, each player rolls one of these oversized dice, they add their gun tokens to that roll, and then any leftover cowboys that they chose not to use from their active pool will also modify that die roll. The player who wins gets to take the appropriate action, and the losing player sends their cowboy back to the active pool. What this means is they can then participate in a later duel in this round, modifying it by 1, and also they will get to take an action the next round. So you don't lose that action, it's just delayed 1 turn. Then here you have 3 roads. There's also a 1 road space. So these are spaces that give roads, and roads are important to build buildings. So the center of town here already has 4 roads surrounding it. But if I later wanted to build a building out here, I would have to play 2 roads just to get that building to access. These 2 spaces here cannot be dueled over. So there could be 4 or 5 meeples here, and they would all gain $4 each. Any other space on the board, if more than 1 cowboy occupies it, there's going to be a duel. So here are 7 buildings. In the first round, there will always be at least 2 ranches and 2 mines in these positions. Then the other 3 buildings are placed into this bag and randomized. Every other round, they're just random. Any unpurchased buildings slide down and become cheaper, and we refill from the top down. Again, these can be dueled over and are commonly dueled over. Then there are ways to get income. So this is income for each parcel of land you have, income for each gun that you have, income for, this is gambling, so you roll the dice and take $1 for each pip on the dice. And then this is a victory point symbol. So all these down here are ways to obtain victory points throughout the game. Well, actually, during a game round. So this is 1 point for every 2 parcels you have on the board, 1 for every 2 guns you have at the time, 1 for every building that is not a house that you have. And then the trick in this game is to convert your money to victory points. Money is easy to come by, points are not. So at the start of the game, there are 4 spaces to gain money or points. So there's a conversion rate of $5 to 1 point, 4 to 1, 3 to 1, 2 to 1. Obviously the 2 to 1 is best, but if it's unavailable or you don't want to fight someone for it, you can always jump on the 3, 4, or 5. Now what's really interesting about this is after the first round, this space will get covered up. After the second round, this space will get covered up, and so on. So in the 4th and final round of the game, there's only 1 of these conversion spaces available to the players. This is going to be a hotly contested space, and only 1 player is going to get to use it. So it's going to be very challenging. So collecting a whole bunch of money in this game is great, but if you can't use it and turn it into victory points, it doesn't do anything for you. So now let's look at the resolution of this track. So it sort of snakes down in order. So first, players get the money that they're owed here. The gun token, the 3 gun token is distributed. Roads are given. And then the other place on the board that players can place their cowboys is on these plots of land. That indicates that a player wants to buy that parcel of land. Parcels of land cost 1 base cost plus 1 for every surrounding mountain, house, or building. So this base would cost 1 and then 1 more for the mountain that's there. If, however, I wanted to purchase that plot of land, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Diagonal and orthogonal all count, so that would cost $5 to claim that plot of land. So all players simultaneously, if they placed cowboys on the board here, would get to purchase their plots of land. Then the buildings are bought, and the interesting thing is, the buildings must go on purchased plots of land. Each player will start with 2 on the board, so maybe there's one here and one out here. And that will dictate which sorts of buildings you want to place, because the proximity of buildings to houses and mountains and other buildings matters a lot. I'll go through what the buildings do in a minute. So we go down the track here, resolving any duels and distributing these buildings to the winners, and they immediately place them into the town if possible, otherwise they hold on to them until they have the appropriate plots of land later. Then we resolve these spaces, and then when we get to this space, that's when income is gained. And again, I'll explain the buildings in a moment, but all the buildings are going to gain income in a very different way, and this is when that is distributed. Also, there's the opportunity to rob from other players. So if someone has a building that's earning a lot of money, and I choose to put one of my cowboys on it, unless it is successfully defended by placing one of that player's cowboys on it and winning a duel, I'm going to rob half of the income of that building from the player. So that's something else to take into consideration. If you have a building that's really a cash cow, that's okay, but you also have to be able to protect that if another player wants part of that income. So everybody takes their appropriate income, and that can be a little difficult, but each tile here has a number that you can sort of twist it to this arrow so you can keep track of how much income that building is earning, and then when that's modified throughout the game, you just have to remember to modify the building so you keep track of it that way. After that's done, we go through these spaces and players earn victory points moving up the track appropriately. And again, these are very popular spaces to convert money into victory points. They will always be, at least the lower ones will always be taken in a game round. So next, let's talk about what each type of building does. There are a couple of these handy player aids that you'll be referencing frequently throughout the game. The first column notes whether a road has to be placed in order to place this building, and most of the buildings this is the case except for the ranches and the mines, which are sort of off on their own. And then whether or not a house has to be placed with the building. This is thematic. If you build a saloon or a bank or a drugstore, there has to be an employee, and that employee has to have a house. So you must place a house, and that house must also be next to a road in the city. The next column here indicates the income and how this building scores income. So the ranches get $1 for every adjacent space that is not occupied. They want to be off on their own in the corner somewhere. The mines score 3 for every adjacent mountain, so there's definitely some spaces on this board where mines may be placed because they're going to score more than either 9 or 12 or even $15 per turn during the income phase for the mountains. The drugstores want to be next to houses and ranches, so they score $3 for each house and each ranch that they're near. The banks are similar. They score 3 for each mine and house that they're near. Saloons score 5 for every house. And hotels here score 6, a base of 6. Now what's interesting about hotels is they also have these 2 house symbols up in the top left corner. It counts as 2 houses for your other buildings. So if you have a hotel next to a saloon, yeah, you're only scoring 6 for the hotel, but you're scoring 10 for the saloon. Prisons are a little different. They don't provide you any bonus in money, but they give you 2 permanent gun tokens, which will help towards every duel that you're in. And churches are also different. They don't provide you anything except that every one of your adjacent buildings may not be robbed from. So if you, again, have buildings that are really raking in the income, this is a way to protect that income. Ranches and mines also give you a gun token. That's noteworthy as well. At the beginning of each round, there are also these roll cards that will be drafted from by the players. This is done in the order of the first player to pass the previous round gets to draft first, and so on. So that doesn't mean they're going to go first, that means they're going to draft first. So let's look at what each of these does. First you have the sheriff, and the sheriff has this fancy sheriff meeple. If you're the sheriff, first you get to go first. This number 1 indicates that the sheriff will always go first in placing their cowboys. Usually they will place the sheriff meeple first. That means that wherever the sheriff goes, that space cannot be contested, so you can't duel the sheriff. This is extremely powerful. It's often used for these money to point conversion spaces. Later in the game it might be used for something else. Maybe the sheriff grabs the 3 guns so that he can win almost every duel on the board. And then at the bottom, this is the amount of money that you can carry over from one round to the next. So if this total is low, like it is here for the sheriff, it's $20, That means that the sheriff has to do something with his money, or he's going to be forced to trade it in 10 to 1 for 1 point at the end of the round until he's below that limit of $20. So you have to make sure you're not wasting a lot of money when you use the sheriff, but he's very powerful. Next is, I believe, the banker. He just gives you $9. That's okay. The real benefit here is that he goes second in turn order, and he has a limit of $120. So if you know you're going to have a ton of money but nothing to do with that money, at least you can carry it over to the next round and figure something else out then. I think this is called the grocer. She gives you either $8 at the start of the round, or you wait until the income phase. And if you wait until the income phase, you can either choose to take $8 then, or double the income type of one building. So if you have 3 mines, for example, that are all earning a bunch of money, you could say, all right, I'm going to double the income of all my mines and earn an extra, I don't know, $27, which is a lot more valuable than 8. This is the railroad worker. He allows you to buy buildings, all buildings, for 50% off for this round, and gives you 2 free roads. The farmer allows you to take any one parcel you want. So maybe that's an expensive parcel, maybe that's a parcel that other people are going to want, and you can just snag it. You get a free parcel anywhere on the board that's not already taken. This is the cavalry officer. He allows you to buy extra cowboys. So for $1 you can buy 1, $4 you can buy 2, or $9 you can buy 3. He's also got a low dollar amount of 25 that you can roll over to the next round. And finally you have the outlaw. This is a game changer, and this one's also taken pretty frequently. He gives you 3 temporary gun tokens to use this round. And he also has a $20 limit here. So if you know that you're going to be in a lot of duels and there's a lot of spaces you want to make sure that you win, you're going to want to take the outlaw. Yes, he goes last, but he will win a lot of duels. So let's skip ahead to the second round and take a look at some strategic elements to the game. So maybe brown player decides they want to go there, orange player wants a parcel of land here, and then yellow player wants this drugstore. Now that's interesting because I have this plot of land here that's next to a couple houses, and I have a ranch. So I also really want that drugstore. I'm going to place a cowboy there as well. And what makes it more interesting is I've taken the outlaw this round, which means I already have 3 extra gun tokens and are pretty much going to win any duels unless someone combats that strategy by taking these. So then maybe brown player wants these points, and orange player wants this, and then it's yellow player's turn again. At this point, he's going to protect his interests in the drugstore by taking that 3 gun token. Except maybe I don't want to have to lose. If I let him have this, then this becomes a 50-50 proposition, and then yellow player can duel me anywhere else on the board, and that's also kind of risky, or dicey, if you will. So I also want to try and take that. And then I'm going to have a huge advantage in any duels that I'm in this round, because I now would have 6 gun tokens if I'm able to win this first duel, which I'd obviously be a favorite in, having the outlaw. So then we're going to go around again, and brown player wants a bank, orange player would like 3 roads, yellow player wants to gamble, and then I'm maybe down to my last meeple here. And another thing that's interesting is that if you have a saloon like this one, you only score for the houses surrounding it if they are neutral or if they've been claimed by you. These 3 houses, which were the center of town and then 2 placed because of the hotel and saloon being built, they are neutral right now. And that means that I can jump right on top of that and try to claim that. That'll do a couple of things. It will take away income from the saloon, because that's $5 less the saloon will be earning every round of the game. It will allow me to place, if uncontested, it will allow me to place one of these parcels there. And at the end of the game, every parcel of yours that has a house, a mountain, or a building on top of it will score 2 points. In a game where you're only scoring, 45 to 55 victory points, 2 points for each building, mountain, and house is big. I would say probably sometimes 20 or more of my points come from just having these parcels occupied. So that's 2 points at the end of the game. It's going to be costly. It's going to cost me 7 money to claim that parcel, but it's 2 points. It takes away income from another player, and it protects my income if I'm able to win this drugstore and place it on that parcel. So that's a pretty good play. Something else I could have done was gone down here and claimed this mountain for the same reason. It hurts brown players' income, it gives me 2 free points, and it only costs 2 because there's not much surrounding that tile. So that's another good way to get victory points. Really, the only end of game victory points come from the parcels. Obviously, anything you've collected throughout the game via these spaces. And then after you've traded at 10 to 1 below your money limit for your final character, any extra money is then traded at 6 to 1, which really isn't that bad. So that's Carson City. There's really a lot to love about this game. There are a handful of different mechanics in this game, but they work together extremely well. First, there's the role selection. So some characters are always good. The sheriff is always going to monopolize you one space on the board, but others are extremely situational. The banker, for example, lets you carry over $120 from one round to the next. So if you can't trade money for points one round, maybe you'll be able to the next round, and there's going to be no penalty. You won't have to trade 10 to 1 to get to the next round. So they're all good for very different reasons. Then you have the worker placement. It's not just a standard worker placement game like Lords of Waterdeep where you're placing guys and completing cards and moving on to the next one. There are duels, and the board is very progressive. So nothing is safe in Carson City. If you place that saloon that's earning you $30 or $35, that's fine, but if someone else decides they want to rob from you, then there's nothing you can do about it, and that building doesn't do you a whole lot of good. Then there's also the area control. Of course, you're placing parcels and buildings into Carson City. This is a really interesting mechanic. The board is very progressive, as I said, so you'll be earning more money as the game goes on, and very differently for your buildings. So there's a lot of strategy into what you play and where you play it, and what the proximity is to the other players. And so it's all three of these mechanics balance together very well. So as a Eurogamer, the dice mechanic and the player interaction don't bother me. In this game, I really like them. And why is that? Well, I think that all the things that I've talked about are mitigatable. What I mean by that is, if I really like the buildings that I have and the income that I'm earning, well, I can protect that by placing a church next to those buildings so no other player can rob from them. If I know that I need to win a couple duels in a given round, well, I can take the outlaw. So, and if I can't take the outlaw because he's been taken, well, that's my own fault for not passing earlier in the previous round. So everything can be affected by my play. There's nothing random for the sake of being random in Carson City. The replayability with this game is high. The board is double-sided, and the character tiles are also double-sided. There's an advanced side and a basic side. We only looked at the basic side when I was giving you the walkthrough earlier. The buildings will also come out differently every game, with the exception of those 2 mines and 2 ranches to start the game. The rest of the tiles will be different every game you play. So as a Eurogamer, this game gets an enthusiastic 2 thumbs up from me, and I would recommend it to anybody unless you really, really don't like player interaction.